Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, so it is Monday morning in sunny San Francisco, but if you are on the Hill or wherever you are, good afternoon, good morning. Thanks for joining this webinar focused on closing the knowledge gap for Hill staffers on Capitol Hill. My name is Garrett Johnson, and this is Alex Scoots.
Hello.
Our main priority for this short webinar, the first priority is to talk about some of the challenges that you inevitably face as a Hill staffer and the important work that you do, and then also address some ways that we will attempt to help solve some of those problems and make you better at your job. I am a recovering Hill staffer. I worked there for 3 years, left a piece of my heart on the Hill, so this is very important to me. Before we get started, just in case a few of you have to drop off before the webinar ends, I want to put this date on your radars. May 9th, we will be back at CTA House. For those of you who were able to join our kickoff event, just a second. For those of you who are able to join our kickoff event a few weeks ago, it was great. We will be back at that same venue right on Capitol Hill, so easy access for the House and the Senate on May the 9th. It'll be a night event. It'll be focused on CRM, how to choose the best CRM, CMS system, best practices around how to use that platform, those softwares in your work to better manage your office, and then an overall discussion about how to enable change in your office. So that's May 9th. Make sure you keep that on your radar. We put on a thing called Reboot Congress a few years ago, last year, almost 2 years ago. In Washington, D.C., we had bipartisan participation from Kevin McCarthy and Steny Hoyer, talking about why technology is important from their perspective. Lots of staffers from both inside Capitol Hill, those who may have left Capitol Hill, who are now working around the institution, who are all experts on many of these subjects. And so we launched HillSDK as a way to operationalize some of the conversations and the ideas that came out of that conference, really trying to focus on how we can make your jobs better. As I mentioned, recovering Hill staffer, worked there for 3 years. And then Alex, you spent some time working on the Hill over the past few years.
Yeah, I'm a Bay Area tech guy. I basically spent my career building and scaling civic and gov tech startups. I worked a bunch of members of Congress, advised about 35 of offices, many of which a couple of folks may be on the call today, and seen a whole host of issues and challenges and legitimate
and successes
with offices, and looking forward to talking about it.
Perfect. All right, so we're committed to this. Had the kickoff event a few weeks ago. We will have the first in-person, as I mentioned, on May 9th. That training, there'll be food there. It'll be a night event, so you can sort of transition from work to that. And then we will have our next webinar in June. So we won't try to get on your schedule for an in-person every month. We'll try to make this as easy for you to manage with all of the other things you have going on in your life. So what's the problem? Why is technology such a challenge on Capitol Hill? So, one of the issues is that it's a small market. So if I'm a small company, a startup, or a big company, going to the Hill is going to be either a labor of love or just a passion project, because it's not a massive market where I can make a ton of money and pay my salary and keep the lights on. So there's that. There's also issues of getting approved to become a vendor in Congress. We've heard consistently from companies who are trying to bring their product to market in the House, in the Senate, that the process is just sometimes really painful to navigate. And it's not because it's intentionally built that way. Staffers in the CEO's office or in other offices that have to approve these technologies, they've got limited bandwidth. And so they're trying to juggle with competing priorities of security and making sure that the institution is protected, while also, vetting technologies that they may not be familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, in order for a new vendor to get into Congress, it could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years in order to get vetted fully by the CAO and CHA to be available to your offices. In addition, they may have to change contract terms to make sure that they can sell to the federal government things like indemnification clauses and ownership of data. All these things are not necessarily things that commercial companies are thinking about. So for them, another way to put it is the cost of sale to congressional offices is enormously high, so they just don't do it.
Yeah.
So availability of good tech is definitely an issue.
Something else that we continue to hear from you and many people who participate in the early stages of HillSDK is the lack of or limited information sharing. So one office may have no idea what other offices are doing. So best practices, what's working, what's not, what technology stacks they use in their office. There's just not easy mechanisms for sharing that information. We know all you Hill staffers are very social, so it's not because you lack the ability to get to know each other. It's just that those formal mechanisms for exchanging ideas, exchanging best practices just aren't there. And so that's a big problem. And another one issue that we continue to hear is, and it touches on the small market, the difficulty of getting approved for the House or the Senate, is limited options. So at any given time, an office can maybe have 2 vendors that can provide the email list, CMS or other technology needs or requirements that they have. And so that lack of options doesn't incentivize competition and innovation the way that it should.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge issue, right? I mean, there's a limited number of vendors that are available to you for CMS systems. In addition, a lot of the technologies that most companies would use that staffers normally gravitate towards, things like Slack and Dropbox, are now blacklisted or gray listed by the CAO because they're not meant to be available, because they don't meet the level of security standards that are needed for offices. So even some of the off-the-shelf solutions that you would have heard about, read about on the internet, you can't use in some cases, which is tough.
That's exactly right. So I worked for 3 years in the Senate, moved to the Bay Area because I started a company, and many of the software SaaS solutions that I use for my company, I never heard of when I was in Washington, D.C. It was just the Bay Area, the tech industry is a hub, is a bubble, just like, Washington, D.C. And so a lot of it is exposure. But, as you pointed out, Alex, most of the technology that I use for my company is not approved to be used in Congress. And so it's just, all of these amazing technologies and tools are off the table.
Yeah, and another good word, a good keyword for the webinar today is middleware. So all these different little bits of communication software that can communicate between platforms and share data to make individual tools that you're using much more useful. Software companies here in the Bay Area, for instance, may use 5 or 6 different solutions for web analytics so that these analytics platforms can communicate with each other. You can get maximum value out of it. So in many cases, even if you're able to get in one of those great tools we would use out here, the middleware connectors between them that you could use aren't always available. So tough one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So going to your point of technologies that could be used but aren't approved, we're trying to capture as much ground level data for offices to figure out what technology stacks you're using. What are the tools in your offices that you're using? So a few weeks ago, we sent out a survey, and we've started to get responses, which is fantastic. We encourage all of you later this afternoon, when you get a follow-up email, to click on that link and tell us what are the technologies that you're using in your office. One of the technologies that almost all of the existing respondents said they're using is Google Drive, which is not approved to be used in Congress. So I want to point that out. We're not endorsing any products, and Google Drive is not approved to be used in the House or the Senate. But the reality is that it's being used.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, people rely heavily on Gmail, right? I mean, there's also, I know most offices are using Outlook. That's the standard email provider, but Google Drive is an easy place for people to collaborate. There aren't a lot of those collaboration tools available internally, and Dropbox is definitely off the list as well. I think Box.net or some other more secure ones may be available, but yeah, every company uses Google Drive.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
We've also heard that there is heavy use of social. So that's obvious, but it raises the challenge for offices who are now dealing with multi-channel communication that has spikes at random times, and you don't necessarily have the right tools to be able to manage that inundation of inbound messaging. And then, of course, CMS tools like IQ, Fireside 21. So, there are approved vendors approved technology to be used in Congress. So one of the projects that we've undertaken, and again, trying to help make your life easier, help you to be better at your job, is to build an app marketplace where these types of tools can be easily found. Information about the technology is available to you to make your decision process of, do you use this technology? Do you use something else? Easier. And one of the reasons why we have started collecting this data is because it was really difficult for us to find the approved list of vendors. And actually, we still haven't seen that document. I've been told that it does exist. Alex has seen it. But it's sort of one of those situations that, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears or sees it, doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's a bunch of lore around this. I asked staffers, like, how do you know you can use a tool or don't you know it's a tool? And their immediate response should be, well, go to the list. But the truth is that list also, which is inside of HouseNet, is super long. And you could look at that list all day, and it wouldn't also give you a good sense of like what I should be using or shouldn't using. It's just kind of a no-go type list. So our job as well is to help translate that list in many cases and make it more usable for you.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a quick overview of what we are at the beginning stages of building with our app marketplace. So it's a quick video that will play while I narrate over it. So you can go to, we'll send you a link to the app marketplace, but you can go to this website and click on it. We are trying to provide technologies that are most commonly used. So we start with the CMS systems. IQ, Intertrack, Fireside 21, you see them there. We'll have 15 or so reviews by the beginning of May, but we've already got some there, so please do check it out. We have a team of reviewers who go and talk to the companies directly. They scour the technology, information available online, and they compile the strengths, the weaknesses, the cost, all in one place. That should be very easy for you to go and see and check out and navigate what's there. We include screenshots, demos, other useful content that you can take advantage of. So I'm going to come back to the screen here. Just a second.
Oh no, they have to look at our faces again. We apologize for that in advance.
All right, so the screen share should stop. Okay, perfect. So, we provide you with one place to go where you can get all this information. We also provide a score, and that score is based on the user interface, the cost, the differentiation of the product, the effectiveness of the product. So just like it's easy for you to go to Google Play, to the Apple Marketplace, and find tools and technologies that you use in your everyday life, we think you should be able to have easy access to go and find consumer reports on the tools that you have access to in Congress.
Yeah, and one of the really big things here is that unfortunately for offices, you make a lot of technology decisions, or many offices do, because the only people that are pitching them on software are the vendors themselves. And that's a real problem, because the person who's trying to sell you Facebook or a CRM solution or CMS solution is saying, we're the best, use us. If they're the only ones talking, it sounds very convincing. So our goal is to give you a little bit more information from an external third party who doesn't have a stake in the game, that just wants to make offices operate more efficiently.
Yeah, so our plan is to build out this app market using the existing vendors that are approved, but we also, again, want to capture the ground level data, information about what you're using in your offices day to day, because we want to respond to your specific needs. Not some fictitious world that we're only using the approved technologies, but the reality is that you are making decisions to try and work within limited budget, limited bandwidth in your office, and so we want to make sure that we're being responsive to the tools that you're actually using. And I want to be clear that if you respond to the survey, we're not sharing the data with anyone. We're not going to get you in trouble. So your data is safe with us. Facebook, not so much, but that was a joke. Our friends at Facebook shouldn't be offended. So your data is safe. We're not going to share it with anyone. So a few quick highlights. Again, take the survey. We'll be sending that out to you later today. Register for the May 9th in-person training. You'll be able to see my face, Alex's face in person. So that's May 9th. It's a night event, 6:30 p.m. start. We'll have food, we'll have drinks, and you'll be surrounded by other Hill staffers who are trying to figure out, what are the tools, what are the methodologies, what are the best practices that can help me do my job better. So it's going to be all focused on you. So make sure you come to that. You'll be getting invitations to the next webinar in June, which will be focused on optimizing your use of Excel. So it's a tool that every office uses. And unless you come from a background where you either use it heavily in your previous job or in school, you may not have the background to really know how to use it as effectively as you could. So that webinar will be announced soon in June. So look out for that. And then we'll be coming back to DC in July for more in-person training. So every other month, you'll be able to meet face-to-face with our team, other experts in the industry, as well as your colleagues in the Hill. Any final thoughts to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, just to give you a sense of what's possible here, some of the offices that we've worked with in the past have tried really basic steps every day. For instance, things like creating landing pages for legislation to see how that works. And in some cases, we've seen in many, like hundreds of thousands of people inside of districts actually interacting with content. When you put it out in the right way, you're optimizing for the right channel using the tools that are available to you today. So I want to impress upon you all that the benefit for doing this stuff correctly is tremendous. And we're really starting from a really low bar because Congress as an institution hasn't really experimented with a lot of the stuff that we see every day in startups out here in the Bay Area. But we figured out ways to separate out the requisite complexity from the non-requisite complexity. That's really what we're offering here. Mm-hmm. We've taken the time and worked inside of Congress and with congressional offices to figure out where we can make recommendations that are sensitive to the organizational context that you have. So we're going to take everything we've learned from Silicon Valley and everything we've learned from Congress and put it together in a mix that should be super useful to you all. So we're looking forward to interacting with you, learning more about your offices, and making some recommendations that can materially help our democracy function more effectively.
Absolutely. You all have incredibly important jobs, and technology is a small footnote on your long list of competing priorities. So our effort is to provide you with easy tools, easy best practices that are digestible, that are easily to understand, and put into action. And so if we can help do that, then our contribution to strengthening our democracy will be successful. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to email me directly at garrett@joinlincoln.org. That's garrett@joinlincoln.org. You'll be getting emails from us in the coming days and weeks. And so we look forward to getting you more involved. I think that's it.
Go America.
All right. Go forth and prosper. See you guys later.